The annual South by Southwest conference, whatever you want to call it, festival, I don't know. It's still underway in Austin, Texas, but the interactive portion wrapped up this week. Bryan Clark from The Next Web was there to cover the event, and he lived to tell the tale. How's it going, Bryan?
I'm good. Very tired, just like you guys said.
We had to stir you out of bed for this interview. I apologize. Normally you would sleep till tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I'd planned on it.
Okay, well, it means a lot to us that you ddidn't.
I heard Megan say that there may have been beer there.
Yeah, was there? That's what I heard too.
I didn't see anything like that.
Yeah, they don't have beer in Austin, Texas.
I heard there was actually more beer than interesting ideas there. Is that true?
Well, if there was any beer, then that would be true, yeah.
What's the biggest difference this year from years past, aside from the fact that there was no beer?
Well, this is the first year I went, so that's the main difference.
That's going to be a hard one to answer.
Yeah. Actually, I've covered it plenty, though. So I think the biggest one was we were kind of short of any real tech breakouts.
Yeah.
This wasn't the year of Meerkat or Twitter or anything like that. And then in reality, it kind of seemed like the South by Southwest light. It was very non-controversial. There was nothing really that, other than leading up to the event where they talked about deporting artists and stuff like that, but that had been a clause in the contract for 6 years. It just didn't really seem like there was a lot going on this year.
Yeah, nothing, like you said, nothing on the scale of a Twitter or a Meerkat to announce. Did it feel, I don't know, did it lack any sort of energy as a result of that, or is just kind of a different style of conference, I guess?
I think the energy was definitely there. The energy is different at South by Southwest as opposed to a CES where we're all just kind of trying to get from point A to point B without getting run over by other people.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a higher energy type event, but I just don't think there was all that much there to be excited about this year.
Right. Well, you found plenty of things to at least get excited about enough to write articles for. So we've got a few of these to kind of touch base on. First of all, I remember kind of when South by Southwest started, I saw this, kind of this influx of articles about kind of the lack of ride-sharing options in Austin, or rather that the big ones, Uber and Lyft, are not there for various reasons. Yet you wrote an article saying that you saw the future of ride-sharing. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I think Ride Austin was amazing, and I think it kind of sets the bar for what apps like Uber should have been, although I guess it wouldn't really be Uber because Ride Austin was a nonprofit. But the drivers were happier. They're all fully background checked, vetted. There weren't 9,000 of them to go around, so we occasionally got a higher surge than we might have gotten with Uber. But in general, I think just all the drivers are happier. They have benefits. They're treated like an employee, even though they still are a contractor. They can get insurance. They keep the entire fare for themselves. They're not sharing that with anyone. Ride Austin takes a $2 fee off the top, and then whatever else they get, including tip, goes right into the driver's pocket. So just in general, I think a lot of happy drivers, and I think this is really interesting moving forward if other municipalities that have kind of been battling with Uber all these years move something like this into the forefront. And in reality, the app was pretty much a clone of Uber. You started up and you didn't have to wonder how to use it. It was immediately familiar.
So, yeah, it's interesting that you bring up this point of municipalities really deciding for themselves. It reminds me of states' rights versus, federal laws in some ways. That's basically what Austin was saying. We want to do this our way. And a service like Ride Austin might not work in New York. What you said was that it didn't work when there were lots of people there, when it sort of broke down a little bit. And I lived in Austin, and when something like that happens, when it's not South by Southwest, Austin's very laid back. It's okay, we have to wait a little bit. New Yorkers, different. They'll need a different service. So is this an argument that really the kind of ride sharing should be decided per municipality?
Not so much. I'm always going to root for a startup type business. I just think if a municipality can do it better, we need to get out of their way and let them try. But on the same note, you mentioned that, and that's true. The app did go down, and it left us stranded. And I don't want to say drinking because there was no beer there, but you get the idea.
That's fake news, Brian. That's demonstrably inaccurate information.
Those are alternative facts, actually. But yeah, it did go down for a little while, but I think that's less of an issue of it being a bad app and more of an issue of scale. This is the first time they've really got to test it under a huge load. And, it failed, but it was right back to working again within 3 or 4 hours. And I think any private company would have had the same issue. I think where you might run into issues is if this happens on a large scale like New York and then the app goes down, is a municipality who might be underfunded for a ride-sharing service like this, are they going to be as motivated to get it back running as quickly as a private enterprise would? So that's an interesting argument. But as far as keeping drivers happy, like Ride Austin was legit. It was great.
Awesome. We need a Ride Austin called Ride Austin in Petaluma. And it will be like,
you want to still call it Ride Austin?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know why we need that, but it just sounds fun. What did South by Southwest teach you about virtual reality? It's totally the next big thing, or is it?
Oh, sorry, I fell asleep once you mentioned virtual reality. It was everywhere, and I wrote an article about this too. It seems like, yeah, there you go. They have tunnel vision. They're looking at these products like Oculus and HTC. And they're kind of pushing that as the future of VR, when I don't think these days most of us think that is the future of VR. I think products like Daydream that integrate with your cell phone, something you always have with you that has very little barrier to entry for consumers. I think those are the future. And they were really kind of overlooked at South by Southwest, which wasn't so much the case at CES, where there was a lot of that stuff.
And I mean, it sounds like there was a lot of VR to go around. I mean,
there was so much VR.
So, okay, so you see all these offerings of VR, experiences, even though they're cool, still kind of hard to get super excited about the trend in general. Is that kind of what you're saying? That developers are super charged up about it, but the kind of consumer demand, the consumer passion for it just isn't quite there yet.
I don't know. I don't even know if developers are getting so charged up about it anymore. I've talked with a lot of studios, and they're talking about kind of cutting their losses with VR and moving on to more traditional games, because there's really not the demand they thought there would be, and they're taking really, really large losses. So yeah, I think VR still might be the future, but right now it's a gimmick. I mean, until we have some processing power behind it, and maybe we can get something resembling 4K in each eye, it's still very much, I don't know, just a cool thing the first few times you see it, and then you're kind of over it after that.
Yeah.
So you said that a lot of South by Southwest was just tone-deaf manufacturers kind of ignoring consumer demand. Did you see other examples of that besides just VR?
Connected everything. I saw a smart iron, which I don't know why you would need one of those. I also saw connected sneakers. Again, same question. That caused me to write another article about how I completely dislike the future if everything is going to be connected. It just seems like kind of we get these buzzworthy trends or hypey type things, and every manufacturer wants to jump on board and just slap that onto a product when it doesn't have an obvious fit. Like, I'm still struggling from CES to understand why I would want to tweet from my fridge.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about this while I'm listening to you talk. It's like Sky Mall becoming mainstream technology. To a certain degree, it's like, well, let's think of the goofiest things that we can put the internet in because we can, but let's be serious about it.
Well, you were having issues getting a to respond to you. Can you imagine yelling at your sneakers? or like uploading your photos to your cloud-connected Nikes? I mean, it just seems so strange.
Yeah.
Well, you could see there was like the smart glasses that were from Visa that had the payment chip in them. To me, it was like they were trying to grab headlines. We talked about those because they want to show the ability to put a payment chip in anything and to make contactless payments easier. Was there any of that you could see? It was just, they didn't really think that there was going to be a huge consumer demand for glasses you could pay with, but they were trying to tell a bigger story?
Yeah, there was a lot of that. And in reality, the sneakers were kind of the same thing. The iron, I'm just completely baffled on. I have no idea why anyone needs a smart iron. But the sneakers were the same thing. Like in a testing environment, that makes a lot of sense. But from what I could understand from the person standing in front of the sneakers, they were kind of trying to push them into mainstream conscience and maybe launch them at some point. And that seems strange. The glasses, that made a lot of sense. I don't think any of us are. I don't think that's the way forward. I think we're all going to be paying with our phones way before that happens. But yeah, there is some utility to some of this stuff, but that doesn't mean the public's ready for it.
I'm going to go back to VR for a second,
Please
only
don't.
because only for one thing, only because it piqued my interest because over the weekend I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about, you don't need to go to roller coasters anymore. All you need to do is have like a big contraption that you sit in, you put VR, and you can emulate any roller coaster you want if they really kind of built out the infrastructure, or kind of built out the experiences to match the machine. And then I saw your article about robot VR and gyro or hero, depending on if you're hungry, VR. And that's basically what this does, right? Did you get a chance to take this for a spin?
No, unfortunately, they didn't have it there. They just had kind of a demo video that displayed a little bit of what it could do, and it looked really cool. I mean, there you go. You can see that. It's slightly terrifying, but I guess I could agree with them to an extent. There's a lot of things you could do with this that wouldn't require building a huge track of roller coaster. I don't even know what you call it. Is it track?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you could fit a similar type experience in a much smaller place, and that makes a lot of sense. But you kind of look toward the future when we have kind of stuff like this, and you're thinking to yourself, I mean, is that the future we want? I mean, you remember that feeling when you're a little kid of looking up at like this giant roller coaster and just thinking, oh man, that's so amazing. Now you're going to look at this ball with people making goofy faces in it and thinking, what? It's not going to be the same level of excitement, I don't think, until you get inside it.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe the experience is so great that it changes your mind. Burke would like to point out that robot arms, because this is a thing with Burke. He's really into robot arms. He thinks robot arms are the future.
I get pitched a robot arm a week.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, pass them to Burke. If you pass them, then maybe Burke will write an article about them.
Burke, hit me up.
So you also literally ran into many connected assistants at the show, some on wheels. What did that tell you about our future of voice-activated helper robots?
Well, I think the most interesting part of it was actually a talk, and it talked about some of the downfalls of smart assistants. Like we all look at Siri and Alexa and think of smart assistants, but it goes much further than that. Smart assistants in the future are going to be somewhat predictive. They're going to try to know what you're thinking and feeling before you feel it. And I use feeling very intentionally there. They're working on actually getting robots or smart assistants that can recognize intent behind the words you're saying, as well as the feeling and emotion that comes along with them. So if you're having a bad day, Siri's going to start singing to you in your pocket or something. I don't know. And it sets this really dangerous precedent for the future because, as the speaker talked about, part of what keeps the human brain functioning and learning and looking for new things is discovery. And if you take that out of the equation by allowing a smart assistant to do all of this stuff, then it made me think of, the people in the chairs in WALL-E. It made me think we're all going to kind of be like that.
Yeah, more and more it seems that way.
We don't have to be, though.
We don't.
Steve Henn, he's one of the founders of 60dB. I heard him interviewed about South by Southwest, and he was a journalist, but now he has a startup. And he talked about how he's waiting in line for a talk or a party or something. And, it was supposed to be a place where tech journalists could interact with people with, interesting ideas or startups or products, and that he went through the line and realized everyone in the line was a tech journalist. There were no people actually pitching products. Did you see a lot of that? And what do you think's happening there? Is it just is it a sign, like an indicator that there's just not as much money for people with startups to, fly people to Austin for a week?
That's quite possible. And that's also the worst kind of line because journalists typically get to skip a line, but I don't think you can skip a line full of journalists.
The tallest ones go first, is what I've heard.
And I'm totally screwed there. So, I think there's a lot of that. I think we saw some. I struggle to describe them. Some cool products on the showroom floor, but nothing really that caught my attention and made me think, man, I have to have this. And I don't know if the pace of technology innovation is just slowing down for these smaller companies or what, but it just didn't feel like a great event to me.
So are you saying you would rush back there in a second next year? Does the beer make up for it at least? Come on.
Well, now that I know that there's going to be beer there, according to Megan.
All right.
I mean, the parties were fun. The beer was nice. The food was good. And the talks, some of the talks were legitimately great. And then there are others like James Comey backing out that really kind of frustrated a lot of people. And then his replacement goes on and gets lobbed one softball question after another. So some talks great, some mediocre. I guess that's part of the course. And then the showroom floor just not featuring a ton of things that I would really call innovative. So yeah, I don't know if I'd rush back, but I think I'll probably be there next year.
Yeah, well, it has redeeming qualities. I think South by Southwest has, at least the interactive portion, has a history that a lot of really interesting technology was born from, and so year after year, it's kind of, to a certain degree, riding on that. It really sounds like this year is one of the times where it truly broke away from that kind of history, and it's something maybe a little bit different. So
everybody needs a nap sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Maybe next year we'll see the new Twitter. I don't know. Sorry. What's up?
Oh, I said let's hope.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought you had something else. But you do, because I'm going to say Bryan Clark, The Next Web. Awesome having you on. Where can people follow your work online?
thenextweb.com and Twitter at Bryan Clark.
Right on. Always great to get you on, Bryan. Thank you so much, and get some rest.
See you later. I'm going to bed now.
All right. Okay. Good night.